Hello, I'm Keith Casebolt from Creative Media of Kentucky. Congratulations on entering into the world of politics. Now, your upcoming race is going to require all of your focus on the issues and those who are going to possibly vote for you. So, the one thing that you don't need to worry about is the media. I'm talking bumper stickers, billboards, newspaper print, radio, television, digital. Who do you buy? Cable, broadcast. There's a lot of decisions to be made. We're the experts at that. We take all of that off your plate, put your campaign together, and handle all of the buying and all of the production. Now that gives you the time to do what you need to. Meet all of the voters, focus on the issues, and get elected. Give us a call at Creative Media of Kentucky.
I'm Gary C. Johnson. You've seen these billboards and ads that say size matters. I agree. The size that matters is the size of the results the law firm gets for their clients. We have several multi-million-dollar verdicts here in Kentucky. In fact, our firm owns the record for the single largest personal injury verdict in the state of Kentucky. That's the size that matters to you. In Kentucky, give our firm the call.
If you're hurt, injured, don't waste time. Gary Johnson cries for every dime.
Welcome to Simply the Law of Life, a program created by attorney Gary C. Johnson. Simply the Law of Life provides free legal advice and encourages happiness and quality of life. Now, here's Simply the Law of Life with Gary C. Johnson and Keith Casebolt.
Hello, everyone. Welcome into the radio program, Simply the Law of Life. I'm Keith Casebolt, my dear friend Gary C. Johnson, here with us to talk about life and all the laws that abound therein.
Especially the ones concerning success, because this is the year that all of our friends out there are going to become successful.
And you know, I heard someone over the weekend say, do you have to be successful? No, you don't have to. But if you want to be...
It depends on how you define success.
Now, that's a great point. Let's talk about that.
Because you can be totally successful if you're content and happy with what you're doing. You are successful.
So you're saying there is no difference than the individual that said, I want to be a stay-at-home mom. And I want to be the best stay-at-home mom you can be. They're as successful as a billionaire.
More so, because they're far more content.
And they chose what they wanted to do, and they did it well.
And that's why my friends are going to define success, and success equals happiness, or happiness equals success.
So it's really not about the zeros.
It would be nice to have some zeros, and we're going to talk some about how you might get more of those zeros, but in the end, it's your peace of mind that's the key to being successful.
So that person that gets up every day and says, I can't wait to go to my job, I love it, that's the successful person that we're talking about, correct?
Absolutely. Or the person that says, I can't wait to get the kids to school, take care of this place, be involved with their activities, and enjoy my life. Now that person is truly successful.
And you know, I used the stay-at-home mom or the teacher because every time I've heard you talk about your story of how Gary C. Johnson come to be, it starts off with some teachers that were in grade school and high school that encouraged you or talked to you about education.
Well, if it hadn't been for the teachers in my life, I wouldn't be sitting here right now.
You would have never gone to college, never gone into the profession of law.
That's true.
Without that encouragement. So how valuable were those people in your life? They meant everything.
Those teachers in my life made the difference in what I did and what, therefore, made it a rule. If I touch someone's life, I leave them better because of it, because they did that for me.
Isn't that amazing that we've got our good friends here walking the planet, walking the earth today, saying, do I really make a difference? And you're sitting here telling them a word of encouragement could make the most difference in someone's life.
That's right. It may be all it takes. if someone would care to do it. And now, how many times, my friends, have I said to you, thank the people that are waiting on you, whether it's a cashier or whoever. Thank them profusely because they are needed.
I was listening to someone complain about the line, how long it was at a certain store, because there was no one there to check people out. And I kind of got tickled because I thought of our conversation. Not one time did I hear that individual say, I think I'm going to go there and get a job and help those people out. I'm going to go work one of those cash registers so people don't have to stand in line.
Or I feel so sorry for that poor person that's having to do all of this work.
Because other people didn't show up to help.
Right.
That's not what's said.
That's not what was going through that person's mind.
No. And it should be. I mean, when we walk into a place and it is absolutely backed up, we should have empathy for the person that's trying to take care of all those people.
I was in a line the other day. No big deal. Didn't have anything better to do. And even if I did have something better to do, it was where I was at, right?
You were in the line.
I was in the line, so I might as well be there. And I told that lady when she waited on me, I said, thank you so much for your patience and perseverance because you're the only one here. And if you would have walked out, we would have been in a world of hurt.
That is the best thing I think you've taught me when it comes to shopping. If there's a long line, look around and start talking to somebody. Mm-hmm. Realize you're going to be there. Enjoy yourself and make the most of it.
You got to be somewhere.
So if you're going to be there, why not make it
be where you are.
Pleasurable experience?
Mm-hmm. Amen.
What a great attitude. Hey, we were talking about success. I picked up this book. A little article. I wanted to get your take on this. It's from Napoleon Hill, Think and Grow Rich, but he was talking about Henry Ford, and I hadn't heard this story before, and I wanted to get your meaning on this. And he started out with, many people make the mistake of assuming that because Henry Ford had but little schooling, that he was not a man of education. So if there's someone out there that doesn't have a master's degree or didn't go to college and they're doubting themselves, listen to the story. Those who make this mistake do not know Henry Ford, nor do they understand the real meaning of the word educate. The word is derived from Latin, meaning to educe, to draw out, to develop from within. An educated man is not necessarily one who has an abundance of general or specialized knowledge. An educated man is one who has so developed the faculties of his mind that he may acquire anything that he wants, or its equivalent, without violating the rights of others. Henry Ford was able to do that. Gary, you've known a lot of successful business people, some of which had very, very poor upbringings.
Most had very, very poor upbringing.
So it wasn't necessarily the educational background that got them their wealth or their riches. It was a perseverance. It was a desire. It was an education of a different sort.
The richest people that I'm acquainted with that I know did not have a college education.
Now, that's not demeaning the college education.
No, they had their own education, which was far superior. I mean, Bill Gates dropped out of Harvard.
Yes. Yeah, prime example.
Yeah, I mean, that just because you have a college degree doesn't mean you're educated, and just because you don't have one doesn't mean you're not educated.
So are you saying there's we're talking about the laws of life. Is one of the laws of life that you can have a master's degree in humanity or life without a degree from a college?
It's more than a master's degree.
Yeah.
It's the difference, is what I'm saying, in practical common sense. You give me common sense, and somebody with good common sense, I'll take that any day over somebody that's got a doctorate degree. Well, 10 times.
I'm glad you said that on the common sense, because here's the story. During World War I, a Chicago newspaper published a certain editorial in which, among other statements, Henry Ford was called ignorant. Mr. Ford objected to the statement, and he brought a suit against the paper for libel. When the suit was tried in the courts, the attorneys for the paper pleaded justification and placed Mr. Ford himself on the witness stand for the purpose of proving to the jury that Henry Ford was ignorant. The attorneys asked Mr. Ford a great variety of questions, all of them intended to prove by his own evidence that while he might possess considerable specialized knowledge pertaining to manufacturing automobiles, he was more or less ignorant. Mr. Ford was plied with such questions as the following. Who was Benedict Arnold? In answering the question, Mr. Ford replied, and how many soldiers did he have in 1976? In answering the question, Mr. Ford replied, I don't know the exact number of soldiers the bridges sent over, but I have heard it was a large number, but it wasn't big as a number that went back. So, I mean, they're trying to prove because he didn't know specific educational information that he was an ignorant man.
Mm-hmm.
Henry Ford obviously was not an ignorant man.
I think we could take that for granted as we drive our Fords down the road.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, great point. So, after a long time of doing this logic, the lawyer was finally floored when he asked more questions and more questions and more questions. Henry Ford finally said, you can ask all the questions that you want. I have a phone with buttons that I can push and get anyone to answer any of the questions that you have asked. Henry Ford realized that he could hire people, much like Andrew Carnegie, when he paid, Charles Schwab, $1 million to run the steel mills?
Paid him $1 million a year, and Schwab didn't know anything about steel.
And they came to him and said, but he doesn't know anything about steel. And Andrew Carnegie said, no, but he knows everything about people. Gary, have we not invested, and I'm talking me, everybody, all of us, enough in people? Have we lost sight of that, and is that the driving force to be successful and happy?
To me, that's the problem, one of the problems with this social media. You post instantly. You pay the price later. You don't have the human contact now on one-on-one because they just go to the computers. I don't know how that'll play out over time, but I don't see it educating people about how to survive in this world.
Because you truly learn from other people.
How else can you learn?
You know, I was talking with a fellow broadcaster, and he said, the thing that I miss most is you used to be able to catch a flight, and when you sat down beside the person on the flight with you, by the time you landed, you knew their name, you knew what business they were in, you shared information, and you made a friend and a contact that sometimes would last a lifetime. And he said, now when you get on a plane, everyone has headsets on, and they have a laptop or an iPad or something in front of them, and there's no communication.
None. That's the way it is. That's what it's come to. So who knows? The bottom line is, this year, I keep repeating this, is the year my friends become happy. Last year was the year to be happy. This year is now to take that happy and be successful.
Yeah.
And perseverance is one of them. And don't get hung up. And the reason we're doing this Henry Ford thing is some of you are hesitating to do what you need to do that you're perfectly capable of doing because you're saying to yourself, I don't have that education. You do have that education.
That goes back to the big fear factor, the if. Remember when we did the great ifs? And one of them was, if I had a sufficient education, I wouldn't be afraid to do this.
If I just live somewhere else. There's just, if you can get those ifs out of your system and not listen to them in your brain, my friends, each and every one of you will become successful this year.
You know, it's easy to be intimidated when you're around brilliant people, educated people. It's easy to fall into it feeling that you don't fit in,
Just because you have a degree does not mean you're educated. I keep saying that, Keith.
Isn't it the truth? Yeah. But, every time I start feeling that way, I go back to what you talk about, that everybody has the ability to do something that 10,000 other people can't do.
Now, that's an absolute fact.
So whenever you're around someone and you're feeling inadequate because you think they have a degree or they're maybe smarter than you and they're more successful and you can't be that way, you're saying stop and think. There's something inside of you that you can do that 10,000 people can't do.
Let me throw something out to my friends. There's nobody smarter than each of you.
Well, that's a big statement.
Okay? I'm
Now,
going to say that again. There's no one on earth smarter than each of you. It just is a different way of being smart. We define smart as being educated and being able to quote this or do that. That doesn't mean they're smarter than you when you can go out and do all of these other things that person could never do. Never do. Now, does that make that person, because they have that sitting there, does that make them smarter than you? No. I'll say it again, my friends that are listening. There's no one smarter than you, period. They just may have a different type of intelligence than you do, but they're not smarter than you are.
So, prime example, you and I are in the studio with this broadcast computer. If something were to happen to it, the two of us could go for a lunch break and a dinner break because we don't know how to fix it. But there's a person who can walk in here and probably fix it in 60 seconds. That's their expertise. That's not mine or yours.
It's not just that. It's their talent. It's what they're good at. It's what makes them smart. And that's what people need to understand. A mother that can raise her kids that turn out to be mighty fine citizens, that's one of the most intelligent people in the world.
Amen.
That can do that.
Yes.
And yet people will put them down and say, well, she was just a housewife or whatever. No, she was creating her children to be good for our society and for our society to grow. She was brilliant.
She gave them the foundation.
She gave that, right. She was brilliant.
You know, when you put it into those terms, each and every one of us should stand up and celebrate the genius that has been born into us.
If you raise a kid, you're smart. Trust me.
Yeah, because I think we all agree when they become teenagers, aliens come down and steal them, and then you get them back in their 20s.
Hopefully get them back alive when they're in their 20s.
Yeah.
But so, my friends, and I'll say it one more time, there's no one smarter than you. If you're listening to this, remember that. They just may have a different type of intelligence than you do, but they may have read more books than you. So what? That doesn't make them smarter than you.
Yeah. That guy who just drove the big tractor trailer into the grocery store and backed it up into that little bitty space and made it look so easy, I'd have the entire parking lot blocked. There's no way that I could do that.
And people say, well, he's just a truck driver. No, he is a brilliant person that happens to be driving a truck.
Yeah, that can do those things with
and is satisfied with that. And that's what people need to look at. And so don't you dare, my friends, put yourself down for 1 second or let anyone put you down. And if someone's putting you down on a regular basis, get them out of your life. You say, well, I can't. Oh, yes, you can. You got to plot, plan, sneak, whatever you have to do, but get them out of your life.
And if anyone ever tries to upstage you like they did Henry Ford and ask you how many soldiers the British sent over, remember that answer. Not as many that went back.
or more than went back.
Yeah, more than went back. It was an asinine question, and Henry Ford answered it in true intelligence, didn't he?
Mm-hmm.
What did it matter if he knew there was 3 million or $2 million or the exact
or
number.
100,000 or 50,000.
Yeah, it had no outcome on the end of the war. We know how things ended.
But it's a wonderful world out there, my friends, as long as you understand your worth. And don't let most misery that I've found in life is from people that have let others beat them down and make them feel like that they're not the special person that they are.
Yes.
That causes more misery, in my opinion, than just about anything.
You are 100% right. And why an individual, you have said before, as a creation, the greatest computer that's ever been created, the creation that you are, one of a kind, why would anyone ever take that kind of verbal abuse from anyone?
They may have to take it, but they don't have to go back for seconds. Right?
You may have to take it once, but you don't have to go back for seconds. I like that. I like that a lot. I thought the most empowering thing that you ever said on this program was that you gave everybody the right to tell people, I'm sorry, I can no longer have you in my life.
Or you don't have to tell them, just to get away from them.
Yeah. I'm choosing to be happy. I want to be successful.
I've made my choices.
And I got to get away from your negativity.
And unfortunately, you're not in them. Oh, you were once, but that was a mistake. I'll not make twice.
I'm not coming back for seconds.
That's right.
It really is a 24-hour, 7-day-a-week job for you to protect your happiness and your success, isn't it? You've got to be wary of people who would come in and sabotage you.
You know, animals don't have that problem. They don't sit around and try to figure out how to make other animals feel bad or
inferior
or whatever. That's unique, I guess, to the human race. And I think that the reason people do that is because somehow, in some sick way, it makes them feel important.
Is it a power grab?
It's not necessarily a power grab. It's that craving to be important.
So the only way I can feel good about myself is if I point out how much smarter than I am than the other person.
And if I can put you down, then that somehow, in a sick way, it builds me up.
So if I criticize you, I think I make myself look superior.
When in reality, you're making yourself look inferior when you do that. But we don't see that. It doesn't occur to us that that's what we're doing.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it all goes back to that instinctive craving to want to be important, wanting to be more, wanting to be relevant, I guess. And if we can make somebody else feel relevant, then we become relevant.
Isn't that amazing?
It's sick.
Back to that people thing. You know, and here's a prime example. We were talking about Charles Schwab. One of the first things he did on the job, you remember from the book, the day shift was getting 6 vats, and the night shift was only getting 3. And he came in before the night shift came in, and he wrote in the dust on the floor, day shift, 6 vats. The next morning, it was erased and gone and said night shift, 7.
Mm-hmm.
He understood that people wanted to be relevant. They had a craving to be important, and when given the chance, they would give their all.
And they would rise to the occasion.
And they would rise to the occasion. He was smart enough to know that.
Yeah, but it was a different type of smart.
Yeah, and he was comfortable enough in the fact that it didn't have to be about him. It could be about the night shift. He didn't say, you've always told me about this word. I was working on something the other day, and you looked at me and said, good heavens, how many I's did you put in there? There must have been 30. And you were like, try it again and drop the I's. And I was going, oh, my God, you're right. Everything I did was I. But Charles Schwab didn't say, I got 7 out of the night crew. He allowed the night crew to put on the floor 7 vats.
And believe it or not, the next day, the day shift wrote 8 down.
And that's why he was getting paid $1 million a year.
Yeah.
It was a different type of intelligence. So
But that doesn't mean he was smarter than anybody else. He was just smart in a different way.
In other words, he didn't know how many British soldiers came over either.
He didn't even know how to make the steel like those men did.
Or what yeah. He couldn't have done that job.
Right.
But he had people skills, which are vitally important. Do you believe that the book, How to Win Friends and Influence People, should be taught in every grade school, high school, middle school?
It should be mandatory. Also, the book, Can't Stop Thinking by Nancy Collier, should be mandatory in high school.
I agree with you 100%.
Now, it never will be, but it ought to be, those two books ought to be mandatory.
Well, success and happiness. That we talked about the happiness all last year. We're talking about being successful this year. And I hope from this conversation and listening about Henry Ford and you talking about the most successful people that you have known in life didn't have a college education, that there's one person out there right now that's listening that says, I have the talent, I have the ability,
and I'm going to go do it.
And I have the perseverance and the desire to see it through.
So go do it, take the ifs out. And if you fail, no big deal. You're just a little bit older, that's all.
And you start over again.
Start
right?
over again. Do it a little different next time.
That's the thing about perseverance. I like it. My friend, thank you for the lesson. I've enjoyed this conversation, and I hope our friends have too. If you'd like to get in touch with Gary, you can do that. Gary at GaryCJohnson.com. On behalf of my dear friend, I'm Keith Casebolt. We look forward to seeing you again next week, right here at this same time.
Thank you for listening to Simply the Law of Life, a program created by attorney Gary C. Johnson. Until next week, may you be safe, blessed, and happy.
If you're hurt, injured, don't waste time. Gary Johnson cries for every dime.
Hello, I'm Keith Casebolt from Creative Media of Kentucky. Congratulations on entering into the world of politics. Now, your upcoming race is going to require all of your focus on the issues and those who are going to possibly vote for you. So, the one thing that you don't need to worry about is the media. I'm talking bumper stickers, billboards, newspaper print, radio, television, digital. Who do you buy? Cable, broadcast. There's a lot of decisions to be made. We're the experts at that. We take all of that off your plate, put your campaign together, and handle all of the buying and all of the production. Now that gives you the time to do what you need to. Meet all of the voters, focus on the issues, and get elected. Give us a call at Creative Media of Kentucky.
I'm Gary C. Johnson. You've seen these billboards and ads that say size matters. I agree. The size that matters is the size of the results the law firm gets for their clients. We have several multi-million-dollar verdicts here in Kentucky. In fact, our firm owns the record for the single largest personal injury verdict in the state of Kentucky. That's the size that matters to you. In Kentucky, give our firm the call.